SAID, or specific adaptations to imposed demands, is the principle that when the body is placed under some form of stress, it starts to make adaptations that will allow the body to get better at withstanding that specific form of stress in the future. A related term is the Law of Specificity, which states that the best way to get better at something is to practice what you desire to get better at. For a musician, that's playing the composition they intend to perform. For powerlifters, it's lifting heavy. For swimmers, it's swimming their event. In the analogy of the musician, there is very little stopping them from playing for hours on end. In fact, the best musicians do so. Athletes have so much training they can do before they become fatigued. Powerlifters cannot max out every day, or they will destroy their bodies and become weaker. Training has to take both fatigue and specificity into account. The bulk of your work should always be recoverable and as close to possible as what you plan to do in competition. Training stress must be the right amount. If there isn't sufficient stress, there will be no adaptation. If there is too much stress, you will cause injury or burnout. The basic rule about getting better at anything is to keep progressing the level of difficulty without getting hurt or overtired. Performance tends to plateau when the distance between too much and too little is so small you cannot find it. Stress must be sufficiently specific to ensure carryover to your sport. The body only makes adaptations to withstand the specific stress it encounters. It has no interest wasting time making changes that do not directly address the issue. Be very skeptical of the carryover or transferability of functional training, or training that purports to be sport specific. Chances are it's not. Keep training simple. If you want to get better at X, train at what looks like X as close as possible as often as you can without becoming hurt or overtrained. There is one important caveat to be aware, which is the law of diminishing return. The longer you put effort into something, the slower that results become. Generally, when you first begin practicing, you'll notice plenty of progress exponentially. But there's a horizontal asymptote at your skill ceiling. With more and more effort, you will get closer and closer to your maximum potential, but never fully realize that upper ceiling. As an example, it may take you 2 years to squat 400 pounds, if you start at 315, but another 5 years to improve to 420. This law coincides with a relative normal distribution of skill. Because it's so easy to become adequate, a lot of competitors who have put any effort at all will be there. At the elite level, accumulating more skill becomes increasingly more difficult. As such, the talent pool begins to shrink. The difference in skill between a pro and a semi-pro isn't huge, but that small gap remains extremely important as it determines the better of the two. As I mentioned earlier, this phenomenon isn't exclusive to athleticism. In fact, other endeavors may be easier to apply, say, in the principle of specificity, because fatigue may not be a limiting issue. If you want to become a better writer, write more. If you want to become a better leader, lead more. If you want to improve at acting, act more. Be aware, improvements do not come linearly. If progress slows, don't give up because this is true for everyone. Everyone's progress slows. A word of caution, you may hit a plateau at which further improvements cut into other life priorities. Those with world-class skill are willing to make those sacrifices.